Welcome back to another episode of the Kings of Houston. The dust has settled on a rollercoaster season for our Royals, and today we're going to recap those final results of what was a memorable campaign. We're also going to look ahead to the USL Academy season and what that's about. So joining me as ever is the King himself, Steve Firth. How are you doing, Steve?
Very well, Sam. How are you? Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you, Steve. And yeah, I'm doing pretty well. It's I've had a little bit of a break, but I'm sure you've been keeping yourself very busy.
Yeah, it's been a hectic end to the season, and then we've obviously got going again with our youth side, and the academy's about to get up and running. So the summer season's kind of rolled into the fall season, and we've just carried on where we left off. So all good though, but I'm back at it, and some drier weather out there, which is good. So
that's good to hear. Of course, you're still at it, and we're back at it on this podcast today. So we'll start by talking about how our USL2 side ended their season. We ended on a high note, which was pretty good. They beat BVC by 3-2 at home. So it was a good way to end the season, even if they didn't achieve like the goal that they wanted, which was obviously to try and get playoffs.
Yeah, right. I think at the start, that was the goal, and there was a shaky start to the season, or after a few games we struggled. The end of the season, to be fair, the boys did a great job. They got some great wins and picked some big points away from home, and it was good to finish off the end of the season with a victory and a nice fitting way to finish. I think they finished 1 point out of the playoffs, and I think if they had finished in the playoffs by that point, they would have travelled to the eventual full champions of Des Moines, so Menace. So it would have been a tricky tie going up there. So disappointing that we didn't make the playoffs, but some positives at the end of the season to kind of really swing us into next season. And we can make a push for that next year.
Like I say, finished 1 point literally outside the playoffs, so it's really fine margins, isn't it? And would you say maybe that middle part of the season is just lacking that bit of consistency, and maybe that's because of injuries, kind of a changing team as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange season when you're talking about working with a summer league. And you've got the swings of people coming in and going out, and people having to go back to college, and you've got your fitness issues and a lot of games in a short amount of time, so you've got to kind of manage that. I just think that they started off, they had a little bit of momentum, and then they lost their way, and you look back on the season, there was just a couple of games where you go, we should have won that game or at least picked up points, and if we'd have done that, we'd have been in that playoff spot. So every point's important. We learned that in the first 2 or 3 years here. And when you come into a game and you think you should win the game, or you play well enough to win the game, or you are winning the game, you need to make sure you pick up the 3 points. And that's the important thing on the men's side.
Exactly. And I just want to ask you, what would you say your main highlight was from the USL2 season? For me, it was obviously seeing people come and watch the games and feel entertained, really.
Yeah, I think it was probably the fact that we managed to bring it back home and open up the sports park and have people out there. And while we really struggled at the very first part of the season at home with the weather, and it really kind of ruined what would have been a great first 2 or 3, games where we had lots of fans in there. We had a couple of games where, we pushed the numbers up, and, you got the kids out there standing behind the goal and screaming at the goalkeeper, and you got people with the smoke bombs going on. And, that's what we wanted. That's what we wanted to create. We wanted to keep people to come out and watch that. So I think for me, that was probably the highlight of the USL2 season, and seeing that. And then also probably seeing some of our seniors that have been with us, the likes of Nico Prioli and Bryce Robish and a few others that have kind of been with us since they were very young. Nico's been there since he was 6. Bryce has been there since I think it was like 9 or 10, and seeing these boys play at that young age and watching them go through this whole system, and then get to play in this league and score goals, and get assists and play well and get player of the night or whatever it was of the game. I think that was probably the highlight for me.
Yeah, and the last thing I want to say about the USL2 side is, obviously you've talked about a couple of the younger players like Nico and Bryce coming through. How can players like that help manage to mount a serious playoff push come next season, even though it's a fair while away?
I just think you've got to get into that league, and you've got to understand the level of it, and that just takes a little bit of time, So once they've had that experience, I think they'll walk into that league next year and bring a lot more to it. And so I think that's just the case. It's just getting used to the speed of the game, how quick the games come, how you've got to train and look after yourself. And I think that it won't be, in any way overawing for anybody walking into that next year. And then obviously because they've done it, the next pool of players coming through that we have, the youngsters can kind of look up to them and get some advice from them, and that can only make us better.
Exactly. And like I say, if there's any team to kind of look up to, it's definitely our WPSL side, because they managed to become the conference champions this year, which is obviously a fantastic achievement for the club, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. That they had a unbelievable season. They were a pleasure to be around, some great personalities, a pleasure to watch. For some reason, we seemed to get nice weather whenever the women played. And so we had some great turnouts. And I think people turned out as well because there was some really good soccer on show and they were getting lots of goals. So, yeah, to finish off the south side of the conference with being unbeaten, and then playing the north side in the Red River Conference Championship game, which we hosted, and was again able to put a lot of people in the stands, was great. It was a really enjoyable season and a pleasure to watch them.
Yeah, exactly. It was a memorable season for everyone involved, and obviously they scored an absolute ton of goals. They were solid at the back, but the final score in the conference championship was a 1-0 win, which came through a penalty. So it goes to show the other side of the game as well, especially because a lot of girls went back to college. So it just shows they had that grit and determination throughout the team to bring it back home to Campbell Road. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think both groups, to be honest, we only played with about 2 or 3 subs in the final game, so both in the same situation. But yeah, if you look at only conceding 1 goal all season, I think that was probably the key when it got to that final game. Tulsa were a good group, so both teams moved the ball well, but I thought that the Royals probably were the better team on the night. Created more chances, had more possession of the ball, and so missed some golden opportunities to score goals as well. But at the other end, they were kind of on lockdown like usual, where limited Tulsa to only a couple of chances on goal. Goalkeeper did great, so the back four were brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it shows you again the depth that we have when 4 or 5 of you players can't go because they've got to go to college. And we've got younger players that jump into it and step up and perform. And they did a brilliant job that night.
Yeah. And lastly, on the women, do you think the WPSL side has helped attract a new fan base for Albion?
That's a good question. I hope so. I hope that the women have shown what they're capable of, and we've got some highlights. There's a couple of goals that were on social media that went nationwide. I hope that next season that there's people in and around the community that will want to come out and watch the conference champions and see if we can repeat, and we can build a little bit of a following. That'd be great.
Yeah, and like I say, certainly a good advert for women's soccer in general. But we'll move on to the USL Academy now, which is obviously what we're going to end the show with. And can you explain to me how this program works for Albion, because it's kind of like an inaugural season for them?
Yeah, the USL, obviously, which is what the men play in, have decided to, in the last year or so, to go ahead and introduce the academy, which really was a stepping stone for them to show how they're going to bring some youth players and show them a pathway through to USL 2, 1 and Championship. And I know they've been running events for a while, but this is the first season that the league has been set up here in our area. And so it'll be the first year that we're stepping into this and playing in it. So it's an interesting look into how to do it. We are looking at setting up with basically it's a high school team of U15s to U19s, and we can mix the age groups and mix players in there. And we've brought a lot of players in that are going to be that have played for our ECNL again, that have grown up in our system. And we're playing some really high level teams from around the region. We've got RGV Toros, which are down in McAllen on the southern borders. We've got San Antonio FC, which will be a really good group. We've got Houston FC, which will keep our little rivalry going in town here, Sam. And Texas United, which are the group that are up in Dallas, that are linked to the Dallas Texans. So some quality games, some extra games for our boys, a chance for some of our outgoing seniors who are in a little bit of a lull without any games and are not playing college to get some game time, and an opportunity for some of our younger players to start showcasing themselves at a higher level and play with some older players. And I know they're going to go out there and step up and do a great job. And, this is, for us, this is a group that was saying, right, this, your long-term goal should be, you want to be on the field for the USL Men's 2 team. And this is the pathway to get you there. And we hope that we can keep developing these players through the USL and through the academy and push them into that level. That's the ultimate goal. So, we're excited to get it started. Our first game is actually tomorrow, Wednesday, the 18th at 8 p.m. at the Sports Park at home to Houston FC. So straight into the rivalry game, Sam. Excited to get that going. We've only had 3 or 4 sessions with that group, but they're really motivated to get after it, and it'll be interesting to see what we can do on the field.
Yeah, there's nothing like kicking off the first game of the season with a local rivalry, especially at home. And in terms of the structure of our USL Academy, who's going to be heading that up in terms of the coaching? And is it basically structured so they're basically preparing themselves to go straight into USL seamlessly?
From the coaching point of view, I'll be heading up that coaching for the first year and getting that moving. It's a new program. We want to just make sure we get it off to a good start. And so, I know, a lot of those boys. I've coached a lot of those boys at different levels. So, it's good for me to get involved in that and get that program moving. I think the goal is, but what you've got to look at is when you're developing youth players, you just want to give them as many opportunities as possible. So, whether this is an opportunity for some of these players to go on and play in the USL, whether it be with us at the Royals or USL 1 or the Championship, whether it's an opportunity just to step them up and be showcased to be seen by college coaches and give them more Division 1 opportunities, or it's just a case of that they need the push because they're doing really well in their current teams and that they need the push to give them something that's a little bit more challenging moving forward to keep the development moving. So, the academy is going to be set up in multiple ways to do all that. And it's not just about obviously going out there and, you want to go out there and you want to win games. At the end of the day, that's what we play for. But at the same time, it's about development and it's about giving people these chances. So, you'll see when we go out there tomorrow, we'll get these games videoed, Sam. So hopefully we can get them on the Royals website. We can keep doing highlights and all that sort of stuff. And we can push some of these players through and showcase their talents. But you'll see tomorrow that, yes, we've got maybe a starting group, but we're going to bring some of our younger players in and give them that opportunity as well. So, they deserve it. They're good players and there's no reason why not.
And you just mentioned opportunity, and you've got quite a few different age groups in that kind of academy. So someone like a young player who's 16 years old, they've got just as equal opportunities of playing as the more senior players, don't they? And it gives them that platform to kind of express themselves on the field and challenge themselves further, really. I mean, I benefited from playing with older players at 16 as well. And it gives them that pathway to try and progress, not just technically, but physically as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, that's the big challenge for the younger players. They might be good at their own level, but it might be because they're quicker and stronger than most players, right? A 15-year-old might be a big 15-year-old who's quick and strong and powerful, and they can burst around players. But once they come up against 18, 19-year-olds, that's not available to them anymore. And so now it's like, well, all right, what's plan B? How do we technically or tactically get around people and move the ball or make good runs and timing? And so they've got to start thinking in a different way. And that's exactly kind of, what this is about. And like I said, I think it'll be good. And then it will be an eye-opener to some of our older players. They've already seen it in practice where they look at some of the younger players and some of these guys are, small, right? And our older guys are looking at who are these kids? What are they doing here? And then they get on the field and they go, oh, okay, that's why they're here. And so, these kids can keep up. And this is what the beauty of this is. It's, we've managed to get a real good feel about our ECNL group. They've just been given the top 15 in the country for, as rankings from ECNL, which is brilliant. And so we've really shown, what they're capable of. And so for some of these kids now to get to step up and play at a new level is brilliant. We're looking forward to seeing them do that.
Awesome. Just to sum up today, Steve, obviously the first game, as you mentioned, is on Wednesday night, so tomorrow night at Campbell Road Sports Park.
Yeah.
What are your main objectives that you want to see carried out over this season? What are reasonable expectations for you to see for the boys?
Again, it's walking into the unknown, Sam, and that's the beauty of it, right? It's like you don't know, you know, are the other teams going to put out a slightly older group? Are they going to play a younger group? You know, you're going to see lots of different styles of play. So I think really the first year is about getting the feel of it. We did that with USL too. And I think it's about, you know, realizing that in this league, we want to go out there and we're going to put a style of play out there. And that's how we want to play. So we're going to try and move the ball in a certain way. We're going to try and press in a certain way when we don't have the ball. And I don't think that, hopefully, we don't want to have to change those tactics, you know, around other groups. We want to try and impart what we're doing on that. And my ultimate goal long term is, you know, we need to tie into that with the USL2 group. So, you know, how the USL2 group play will be the same as how the USL Academy team play. So any player that's doing really well that needs to make that jump and step up and play into that USL2 group, they can walk in there and they'll know tactically what to do. They'll understand where they need to be. They'll understand the lingo and the language of what the coaches are talking about. And that's the important thing. So, you know, it'll be an interesting season. We're looking forward to it. It's 8 games between now and the end of November. And then we get to start again in the spring with a new season. And, you know, if new players want to come in and play at that point after, you know, they've seen these guys play, there'll be opportunity for new players to come in and try it out to play in that spring season. And then there's also a third season, which runs alongside in the summer alongside the USL2. So as your USL2 team's playing, there's a potential that our USL Academy team will be playing their Academy team at the same time. So, you know, lots of opportunities for these kids, which is exactly what we're all about.